With the castle of Sofia and the surrounding lands returned once more to the imperial fold, Ioannes Komnenos continued to secure the northern border. He planned to rely on the Danube River to be a natural border between Roman lands and the Hungarians. To do this, he needed to lay claim to the land surrounding Skopje castle, a plan supported by his father Alexios and his council of advisors. In the east, Alexios Komnenos Doukas faced a difficult choice. To leave the town of Ankara without a suitable garrison to keep the population under control would mean riots in the streets, but if he left too many of his troops behind, he would not have enough to deal with the Seljuk armies crossing over the borders into the Empire's lands. Perhaps there was a way to kill two birds with one stone, as well as gain another foothold into Asia Minor. Only time would tell. Hello everyone, I'm your host Warrior Angel. Welcome back to part 3 of the Phoenix Rises, my narrative let's play for Medieval 2 Total War. Now in the last episode you would have saw that Ioannes managed to capture the castle of Sofia and the surrounding lands, returning it once more to the Empire's control. As you can see, still currently garrisoned, and his next target is going to be the castle of Skopje, which is the stronghold of the rebel region in the west. In order to head over there, I'm going to have to leave some troops behind as a garrison. I decided to leave the Magyar cavalry. As you can see, you get free upkeep while they're garrisoned, as well as the unit cavalry, as they're quite weakened after the previous battles. The rest of the army then continues to head west towards the small river crossing that will allow me to be within range of Skopje. Yes. Given the good weather conditions and that, he should be able to lay siege to the castle on the next turn. My spies, unfortunately, what spies I have managed to get an information gives me that there's a couple of archery units, but unfortunately I need more information. It's something I have to deal with shortly. Heading south now towards Corinth, I decided I'm going to use Corinth as my main location for building up infantry, melee infantry in particular. So I want to try and get the best troops I have available to me. So first of all, I'm going to build a leather tanner and tailor in order to improve the armor of my troops recruited there, as well as a drill square. Now having a drill square will not only allow me to have more troops in general to be recruited at a time, but also allow me to get scoutatory, which have proven quite effective in the campaign so far, and which hopefully put me in good stead against the western factions. With the money I have available as well, I decided to convert Arta over to a city finally in order to be able to build it up and hopefully get more money from it in the long run. And over in Thessalonica, I noticed I had a couple of agents available, including a spy that I built a while back, Nathanael. As you can see, he's not the most subtle person in the world, although he does have a little bit of talent about him. And taking a risk, I decided to try and send him up then to Skopje. Hopefully, if he can get inside the walls, he'll be able to give me information about the garrison, as well as possibly able to open the gates once I lay siege. As you can see now in the video, he's decided to go for the classic technique of trying to hide in a bush and sneak past a guard. Now, personally, I don't know how this would work. I would have personally thought the guard would notice a bush moving around, but he doesn't, and Nathanael manages to get inside the castle. From then on, he will be able to give me the information that I want. After getting into the castle, Nathanael manages to tell me that the garrison consists mainly of archery units. As you can see, a couple of levy archers, some brigads, and some Magyar cavalry. In terms of melee troops, they've only got peasant infantry and Slavic levies, which should prove any challenge against my army. I've also got a 24% chance of opening the gates once Ioannes starts the attack, which will hopefully allow me to be able to attack straight away without having to worry too much about building up siege equipment for the upcoming battle. Over in the east now, Alexios has to deal with several Seljuk armies that have started to make their way onto Roman lands. Annoyingly, I can only see one of them on the campaign map, where the larger and more dangerous one is hiding, I believe, somewhere up in the north. To combat this threat, Alexios is going to have to march his army out of Ankara to deal with the invaders, while leaving behind a strong enough garrison in order to try and keep the public order in check. It's going to be a difficult balance, but after thinking about it, I decided to leave a unit of Conteste javelin men, as well as my Siphoratores, and a unit of Toxite archers behind at Ankara to hopefully keep things under control while the rest of the army marches out. As tempted as it was not to try and head off towards that small little Seljuk army in the south, I decided to send them north instead towards the river crossing, where I'm hoping that I can be in a position to attack either army, depending of course what happens during Seljuk's turn. Next, I moved the survivors of the garrison force intended for Ankara into Baris to protect them against further attacks from the Seljuks. And with Baris, I decided to build a leather tanner and tailor there, as I plan to use Baris as a recruitment station in the future, due to its proximity to the front line. Finally then, with the other towns and castles in the eastern regions, I take the opportunity to recruit a few more extra troops in order to be able to replenish Alexios' forces once he's dealt with the invaders. Up in the north, my diplomat Theophilus has spent the summer in the Lithuanian capital Vilnius, engaging in talks with the Lithuanians regarding trade, and as winter started, he heard of a Novgorodian princess visiting the town, and took it upon himself to meet with her and discuss a possible relationship between our two factions. As I came in then onto the diplomacy screen, I decided that I was planning to go straight for trade rights as a definite, and I wanted map information. I didn't really want an alliance between us because they are quite far in the north and there's quite a few factions between us that I don't really need an alliance between them. So instead I just wanted map information. Unfortunately though, as you can see, it's quite a demanding proposal, even with an offer for an alliance, so I decided to make a straight trade of map information for map information, as well as trade rights, which as you can see was a well thought out offer and she happily accepted. So as you can see now on the map, the Republic of Novgorod, not the Duchy, is currently available now on the top, and as I said, there are quite a few factions now between us and them, enough that I have plenty of warning should they decide to head south and invade. So next now, Theophilus is going to head now into the cold north, heading further now along the coastline towards the kingdoms of Denmark and Norway, hopefully to be able to secure more trade and possibly alliance with them as we head further west. As I ended my turn and the Seljuk Empire started theirs, I was quite surprised to see that they started moving their armies out of my lands and instead seemed to be fortifying Ankara from attack. No doubt they feel intimidated by Alexios' presence and feel that he's going to be trying to attack Ankara next. During the rebels' turn now, Nathaniel was forced to leave Skopje to avoid the attention of the guards. No doubt unfortunate for me, but it's going to turn out even worse for him in the long run. I also got the problem now that Iconium now has been rioting with over 1,000 citizens killed and a couple of buildings damaged. So my first priority now is to repair them as well as to try and replenish the Toxicity unit currently garrisoned in the town. Unfortunately though, there's nothing I can do to try and improve public order. There's no new troops I can recruit for another turn, so I'm going to have to go for another turn of rioting. On the plus side though, we do have a new family member, Zini Komenos, who, having a look now on the family tree, I noticed after a second that is actually ioannes' daughter, his first child with his bride Olympia, something that no doubt he's going to be happy to share with everyone. To the Emperor Alexios Komenos, I send this letter to your father as quickly as possible, as I have glorious news. You are a grandfather. After what I was told was an easy birth, Olympia has given birth to a beautiful baby girl, who after much thought we have decided to call Zini. Both the baby and mother are well, and I'm currently resting in Thessalonica. Even as I write this letter, thinking of her brings a smile to my face. I'll have to bring her to Constantinople for you to meet your granddaughter when they're able to make the journey. She's such a beautiful girl. Thankfully, she takes after her mother in that regard. But she does have my eyes. The eyes are markers of true Komenos. If God continues to favour us, perhaps we will be blessed with a son in the future. Only time will tell. As you can imagine, Alexios is going to be pretty happy at that news of being a grandfather for the first time. Over in the east now, I've got a cunning plan for Alexios in order to try and eliminate these small armies and hopefully capture Ankara in the process. I plan to go after each of these armies one by one before laying siege. So the first target is Captain Fahad's army down in the south. He decides to retreat, but I chase after him with the balance of power way much in my favour. I go for an auto-resolve, where I managed to win with very few casualties. I signed in to try and ransom back the prisoners to the Dukes, who have refused to meet my reasonable ransom demands, leaving me no choice but to execute the prisoners. This is something that the Seljukes do quite often during the campaign thus far. And then send them up to deal with a small army stationed outside Ankara, and although they retreat and leave me with no movement points, I'm still close enough to Ankara to actually start laying siege. So I built a couple of battering rams, and in the following turn now I'll be able to actually start the siege battle. The enemy army outside has only got a couple of spear militia, nothing really for me to worry about. It shouldn't be much of a challenge in the upcoming siege. Over in the west now, I decided to recruit some more units, as well as bring the units that I've managed to recruit so far, and get them to join in a central location in Greece, where they will allow me then to either use them as a garrison force for the regions I recently captured up in the north, or to be able to replenish the troops that are currently lost in ioannes' army, but depending on of course how it goes. As So you can see I've got quite a few different units to try and take into account, and I decided to send a couple of Toxter units up to act as a garrison for Skopje once the castle has been taken. Unfortunately, I had a slight cock-up regarding what sort of units I wanted to use as a garrison, which is why I've sent some off and head them back. At Skopje, my spy Nathanael attempts once more to evade the guards and enter Skopje, despite the trouble he must have had last time to force him to leave in the first place. As you can see in the video now, he's decided to go for the traditional false bush technique that did him so well in the last time. However, it seems that he might have recognized the guard, or he might have been nervous about trying to get in, but whatever it was has caused the guard to notice him despite everything, and upon investigation realizes someone is hiding in the bushes and ends up killing Nathanael, which unfortunately for ioannes means that he's going to have to try and rely on traditional siegecraft to try and get into Skopje. So I decided to go this time now with the traditional approach, which is having 2 siege towers and as many ladders as I can afford to do in one turn. Hopefully be able to use the rest of my troops then to climb over the walls and capture it. With this diplomat Vakos, I sent him to the coast as I plan to send him up towards Scotland in order to try and secure trade in the future. Just have to see how that goes. During this Duke Empire's turn, a number of armies now appeared outside Ankara to try and deal with Alexios. Fortunately for me, none of them are close enough to either attack him directly or to influence the siege in the coming turn, so hopefully Ankara should be mine. As you can see now as well, the Fourth Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire as they call themselves, has sent a diplomat to Sofia to try and negotiate and start talks with me. As you can see, they originally just wanted trade rights, but I wanted more. As the Roman Empire is both usurpers and as one of the closest factions to my lands, I would like map information to be able to plan my upcoming expedition to try and reclaim my lands off them. So unfortunately though, the proposal is quite demanding. I'm going to need to offer more, so I offer them map information as well. It's barely accepted, but I got what I needed. And as you can see now, down in Africa, Demetrios is now coming under pressure from a Portuguese diplomat for the gold mines in the area. Fortunately, Demetrios manages to hold back not only that, but eliminate his competitor in the process. Oh my dear, the fool Byzantine finally got what was coming to him. To think that he was trying to put me out of business despite my claim to the mines here. First he tries to buy the mines off me for half the price I paid, and then has the audacity to try and persuade me through violence. What was he thinking? To start with, you shouldn't have tried hiring the local thugs when I've taken the time to make them friendly towards me. Then, when given the choice to either be paid in silver by him or by gold by me, this choice seems rather simple. Although, I didn't mean for them to go too far and burn his warehouse down to the ground, leaving him penniless. Perhaps I'll be generous and give him a couple of florins so he can make it back to Portugal.
Traveling with God.
Your orders, noble one. God will be with us, men. To battle! Blessed Lord, we thank you for delivering us. Our courage has prevailed.
Going on to the castle itself then, I was originally tempted to just repair the castle and retrain my troops that are currently able to be retrained in the region, but I decided after thinking about it for a little bit that I was going to instead convert it over to a town, simply because I don't really need that many more castles in the west, and having it as a town will actually be able to get me more money in the long run. So even though it's going to cost 4,000 turns, I decided I'm going to go ahead and start converting the Skopje over to a town instead. Capturing Skopje did manage to get me a nice little reward as well. The Council of Nobles was presenting me with 2,000 florins. Not a bad little sum for doing something that I was already planning to do. After moving some troops around, I go to Thessalonica to recruit a new spy to replace Nathanael after his death at Skopje. And with the Hashion, I decided I'm going to use this as a secondary recruiting province, with Corinth being my main one to recruit infantry. So I'm going to build a barrier first of all, and eventually build a stables into Hashion. Finally then, my last bit of business in the west is to bring the fleet of built Corinth over to pick up Vakos, and have plans for him to head up towards Scotland in order to negotiate some trade rights and possibly even an alliance, which should prove effective against the English. And as I have no intention of heading that far into Scotland, it might prove useful to prevent them from attacking me in the long run. Over in the east side, first of all I put my fleets together and decided to try and go after the Fatima Caliphate's navies that have been bugging me for a little while. So in the first conflict I managed to sink one ship with leaving one left, and it's just a case now I'm trying to find the other one to sink it as well. As you can see, 13 men against 290, not that difficult odds to face, and I send them, after defeating them now, I'm sending them off to defeat the second one. Headed back over now to land, Alexios is surrounded by several Turkish armies. Fortunately for him, none of them are in a position to actually attack him or act as a reinforcement army in his assault on Ankara, apart from that small little army in the north of the town, which I know only has 3 spear militia units. Shouldn't prove any challenge to my superior hand-to-hand troops. So I go ahead and actually assault the town. As you can see, the balance of power isn't 100% in my favour, and despite the fact that the enemy army only consists of spear militia and a couple of archery units. So I decided with this battle to actually fight it on the map itself. So I'll see you in a moment. At the start of the battle now, I ordered my battering rams forward to try and make a hole in the wall for me. One of them will head straight towards the main gate, and the second one towards a wall on the side to be able to allow me to bring extra troops in from 2 entranceways. I also spy the enemy reinforcements making their way onto the battlefield. Having a quick look, I see that they've got a long way to go before they even head into the town, let alone be able to join the garrison force stationed there. Hopefully by that point they'll be so exhausted that it should make things easier for my troops once they get into hand-to-hand combat. And as my battle rams decide to get closer to the wall, I move my Toxite units as my other ranged units closer to the walls. I was hoping to try and use them to attack any enemy units currently stationed by the gates, but it does seem that they all retreating, or falling back I should say, towards the centre courtyard. So instead I take the opportunity to move my troops a little bit closer, ready for the inevitable charge into the town. After a little while, my battering rams make it up to the walls, and in a second now my first battering ram will manage to smash down the gates. As you can see, the enemy has decided to remain within the central courtyard rather than bring their troops out, which is a good thing for me, as their missile troops could have caused some casualties among my men, but by keeping them in the central courtyard allows me to be able to attack the walls relatively unharmed. With the gate finally knocked down, I take the opportunity first of all to play around with some time manipulation and reduce time back to a normal speed, before ordering my scoutatory unit into close formation ready for the charge. My plan for them is to head them straight down the main street right there, and engage the enemy garrison head on. In the meantime then, as the walls fell, I'm going to use this Conservatory unit, once they get their siege equipment dropped, to send them instead around the right flank to be able to try and attack the enemy garrison from the right hand side, hopefully either to split their forces or to be able to attack and cause them to retreat, depending on the circumstance. So I'm going to put them right here on the street so they can head straight up and round to the right. I take the opportunity and then send more troops in as well around the gates and head up instead up to the left to be able to attack on that side as well. You can see now all my men are starting to make their way into the town. In the centre now, my scouts are already starting to engage the Turkish horse archers. They decided to move forward, and unfortunately for the horse archers, they're not going to have much of an opportunity to attack before my scoutatory engage in melee combat. My archery units then continue to try and move forward. I'm moving the these javelin men. I'm still getting used to the Greek names. The javelin men to the front line so they'll be able to fire over the scoutatory unit, and then try and bring the other Toxite archers behind them to be able to attack from there. As the main battle rages on in the centre road, my other flanking units start to get into position. Over on the left flank, my 2 generals, Mintas and Alexios, start getting into position ready for the backward charge, whereas on the right, my spearman unit notices a unit of militia running down the hill away from the courtyard, so I decide to send them off after them, and then send the generals to charge into their flank, and they slowly get themselves into position. Unfortunately, the fact they are heavy cavalry means they do take a while, but the charge is worth it, usually. Over on the right flank now, notice my spearman unit charging down to try and engage the spear militia at the front. Didn't want this, I wanted them to try and get it from behind, but as I was going to try and get them to come round, I noticed an opportunity. If I could block off the entrance to the courtyard, that unit of spearmen should hopefully be able to hold the spear militia unit as well as the reinforcing army, and allow me to engage them with my other units from the flank, depending of course on how they decide to clump. Unfortunately though, as you can see, as my Athanatoi's bodyguards make their way through the courtyard, they captured it, forcing the spear militia to come rushing back in order to try and capture the courtyard once more, and meaning that the spearman unit won't be able to be quite in position. The Athanatoi now charge into the back of the Turkish archers, managed to get them to retreat in one go, and kill over 20 in the charge alone. Thankfully now the Athanatoi are actually between the archers and the courtyard where they would be able to regroup, so the Turkish archers now have no choice but to be slaughtered by my bodyguards. Fortunately the spear militia started making their way into the courtyard, so I decided to send the Athanatoi straight up now to engage them head on. Thankfully this isn't like Attila, where trying to send horsemen against spearmen would not be the best technique in the world. I also get my spearmen into position to try and deal with the reinforcing army, as you can see slowly making its way towards the centre of the town. The problem now though I have to face is that with my Athanatoi blocking the main entranceway into the courtyard, a lot of my units are now stuck in the street, unable to make their way up. I do still try to get them up in position. I bring up my contestae in order to be able to provide javelin support against the spearmen, as well as trying to bring my 2 units of toxitae in order to try and attack them over the heads of my spearman unit. Fortunately now it seems that as I send my Athanatoi back, the spear militia unit has decided to try and attack my spearmen from the rear. Unfortunately not the best thing for me to have done, especially with the spear militia now literally coming around the corner to charge my spearmen, so they're now going to have to deal with fighting on both sides. My Scoutatoi tried to even the odds by charging that spear militia unit from the back rear, but unfortunately they haven't decided to all swarm in, and there's only a couple of units attacking them, sorry, a couple of soldiers I should say, attacking them in one go. Here comes the spear militia unit now to charge my spearmen in the rear, and so they're going to have to try and fight on 2 fronts. If I remember right, at the end of this battle, I think there's only like 1 man left out of the whole spear unit, but I still managed to keep the unit, fortunately for me. As you can see now, Scoutatoi are still trying to work their way through the enemy soldiers. They are killing them very easily. They're no match for my Scoutatoi, but it is annoying that thanks to the mechanics of this game, only about 5 of my spearmen out of a unit of over 100 are actually engaging the enemy. The rest of them are just casually carrying on from behind. The Constancy spearmen, as you can see, they're going to be a pretty strong position. They seem to be able to hold them off, and victory seems to be a dead cert, but unfortunately though they will be taking casualties in the long run. I do send Alexios and Mintas over now to try and attack the enemy spears from the flank, but the fact that I'm now in position to be able to prevent them from entering the courtyard, I should hopefully be able to deal a decisive blow and kill them in one fell swoop. As I start to try and address my Constancy and my Toxicity units to be able to attack the enemy, I get some good news. The enemy general lies dead. I believe this is the one for the garrison force, but it means unfortunately they're still not going to break and run. My Constancy have decided that randomly they're going to try and attack the spear militia instead of actually doing what I tell them. They're just trying to get into position to be able to use their javelins to the most effective use. As you can see now, I've sent some units now to try and flank the enemy spear militia as well. It seems now the odds are very much against my spearmen in the centre. As you can see, victory seems certain. Only a fool could actually lose this. But unfortunately though, for them, my Athanatoi with Alexios and Mintas leading them are charging now to deal with a decisive blow to the rear. With quite an open street, hopefully this charge should prove quite deadly. As you can see, one of my generals I'm going to go with called Alexios because he's on the front line. It seems like something he would do. It charges in, and a devastating charge. Bodies go flying, the attack goes to go thing, and all of a sudden now the enemy unit starts to retreat, with my units slaughtering my way through them. I believe at this point, fortunately though, they managed to make it to the courtyard where they actually managed to regroup as well. Although I managed to kill a number of them in the process. Finally, in my contest day of getting into position, they slowly started lining up, ready to start throwing their javelins into the combat. I am slightly concerned about hitting some of my men in the process, But hopefully there's a large group of them that should allow, there we go, a lot of the enemy units to be killed rather than my own. It seems now that the spear militia unit decided to try and charge my conteste skirmishers, but changed their mind after a couple of them die in melee combat, it seems, with them. Now I was hoping that the conteste managed to continue to attack with their javelins, but instead they seems to change their mind and want to charge them with their hand axes instead. Although at this point now it seems pretty much inevitable that the spear militia are going to die, being attacked on one side by heavy cavalry and on the other side by my elite scout toy spearmen, as well as these conteste, who, despite the fact they're only skirmishers, seem to be, I would imagine, just as good in hand-to-hand combat as his militia themselves. With no choice now, it just seems that they are just going to be killed where they stand, with no opportunity to retreat. Even though, the problem is though, is that even though I've managed to kill the Saracen general, as you can see here, they still hold the courtyard until I manage to capture it. I have no choice but to just keep attacking them until they eventually flee. I managed to capture it though in the end, and as you can see, I've only got a couple of units left, so it was about this point that I decided then to try and speed time up in order to try and get the battle over and done with a little bit quicker. Didn't take too long though, as you can see, it still was about 20 seconds or more of fighting, nearly 30 seconds. But I managed to win with only 156 casualties. Not too bad, although to be fair, I did outnumber them. So with that everything else then, I decided to go back to the campaign map. After the battle, I had to decide what to do about the prisoners I captured, as I managed to capture over 200 of them. After thinking about it, I decided to go with a ransom to try and get a little bit of money back, but unfortunately the Seljuk Empire decided to not pay the demand. Something I believe was quite callous considering there was the soldiers we were talking about. But it did leave me now with the opportunity to occupy Ankara, which I was tempted to actually sack it, but I decided just to go ahead and occupy it instead. This just meant now I had to try and repair and retrain some of my soldiers, but I was quite interested. I found that I did have one man left at the spearman unit. You may remember the battle was attacked from both sides as they tried to hold the entranceway into the courtyard. I did want to try and get them back, but unfortunately though I wasn't able to do it, so I decided I'm going to try and keep it in mind for the future and retrain the other units instead. I also had the opportunity then to try and see if there's anything else I was able to do, but unfortunately though I couldn't. And I can see a lot of the town is still Middle Eastern. I'm going to have to see about trying to destroy the buildings and perhaps repair them in the future, or convert them over to something else. With nothing else now, I decided to lower the tax rate in order to try and get public order a bit better. And it's now left me with the position of what to do with these two large armies currently stationed outside Ankara. I decided that with the movement points available, I was going to try and take them out right now. So, unfortunately though, having a look, I did see they have a couple of spear militia units as well as some heavy Armenian cavalry, while the other army contains mainly, it seems, archers and spear militia. So instead of trying to attack straight away, I was hoping to try and bring my army out to the side, hopefully to try and recruit some more mercenaries. Unfortunately though, there's only a unit of Turkopol cavalry, which, being horse archers, may not do that effective, but you never know, so I decided to recruit them. On the battle deployment screen, I see that the balance of power is slightly against me, but not by a lot though, considering that the enemy currently outnumbered me by 2-to-1 odds. Unfortunately though, I felt that this was a bit too much though, and I wanted to try and actually retreat from the battle. Unfortunately though, when I actually went to try and do this, as you can see I can't move. I'm stuck in the enemy's zone of control, leaving me really with no choice but to actually fight the upcoming battle against the two armies. So this is something I'm going to deal with the next episode. Will Alexios be able to survive this? Will he be able to fight back the two Turkish armies and be able to carry on with his campaign to expand into the east? We'll find out in the next episode of The Phoenix Rises. After the capture of Ankara from the Turks, Alexios quickly marched his entire army out in the attempt to drive up the nearby Seljuk armies that originally came to reinforce the town. Perhaps a rash action in hindsight, as by the time Alexios changed his mind about the attack, the proximity of the enemy armies to his left him with no chance to maneuver away. Having no other option, Alexios and his army attacked the Seljuks despite being outnumbered over 2-to-1, having faith in Roman courage and steel. Back in the west, ioannes' campaign had gone from strength to strength, having captured a number of regions in the north and securing the empire's borders. He spent the remainder of the winter of 1105 AD in Skopje, overseeing the conversion to a market town and spending time with his wife and daughter, before the new year came and the western expansion continued.